Listen, I'm pumped about this conversation. I'm more pumped because this is going to be a
Me
conversation
too.
that's hopefully going to bring some value, not just to us on the call today, but to other people that are going to be listening to this. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you the floor. You had something very specific that you wanted to come on here and chat about today. And I just want to kind of open up the floor and let you kind of kick things off.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So my name is Shamsa, and I am co-founder and co-owner of Afia Beauty. I own it with my sister, and she and we started our journey through becoming certified organic skincare formulators probably 3 years ago to take something that we both love, something that was passed on by my mother, my grandmother, and my aunts, which was like the power of self-care through just your skin and your hair. It was always a big thing back, like in my family anyway. So we always were making potions from a very young age. You know, we'd make our turmeric masks and our honey scrubs, like from when we were 5 and 6 years old. So we then I started gifting them to family and friends, and they really loved it. And then it led us to create what we have now. And so I think when we first initially became a business back in 2019, which feels like forever ago. Can you imagine
It
2019?
does feel like forever. 8 months ago feels like forever ago.
I know. When I say that, I'm like, oh, the relic years. Yeah, so when we started and we started going to trade shows and different markets, we found that there wasn't a whole lot of diversity from like the vendors to our consumers that were there. It actually was quite shocking at the time. We're like, oh, that's different. Like there isn't a lot of people that look like us. So that like forced us to kind of look deeper into why that was. And when we, upon doing our research, we found that 70% of things marketed to Black women were considered heavily toxic. And then that also led us to dig deeper, like, well, as a woman of color, as particularly Black women, why is this? I want access to clean beauty, and I want access to skincare that doesn't have negative, harmful effects. And it's so I think that kind of really was the beginning of doing what we do. That was our why, I guess, that's when it started, our why. And we understood quickly that it transcends making beauty products. Because at the time I always loved it, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do. But beauty has such a playful, light connotation to it, but it really definitely informs us of how we feel and how we like look through the lens of this world as a woman. It's important to feel included, especially on a nonverbal level. Like if you're going to a Shoppers and you want to be able to see yourself. We all do in all aspects of our life, and beauty was one of them. So so we just kind of wanted to come into the space to shift the narrative, to take away the singular lens of wellness, which is particularly damaging to I think most women, because most women can't fit into any of those beauty ideals anyhow. And also that wellness is sold as exclusive and overpriced and unattainable. And when in fact it really is broad and it's multifaceted, and it should be available to everyone. And then so, and historically women of color have been excluded from the wellness industry, and we've just had like our little corner section of the Walmart where like just like the Black people market of products, which, I now to think about it, shopping there when I was a little girl, and how like you'd go and you'd see that like pink lotion that was just, it was so pink. It was like Pepto pink, and I I could still remember my mom buying it and like layering it onto my scalp, and I to this day don't know what that berry pink lotion was on my on my scalp. And also the reproductive harm that it does to women. Again, because we are disproportionately affected as Black women, the things that we put on topically on our bodies have been shown to have negative health outcomes, birth health outcomes to Black women. Anyway, so all of this and making this like information overload and just really powered us to move forward in our business. And so I'm here today to talk to you about imposter syndrome. So I guess we should first start by like talking about what is imposter syndrome.
Absolutely.
And okay, so imposter syndrome is a belief that all good things and achievements are achieved by chance and actually not by real merit. It's really the inability to internalize your own success. And it causes feelings of doubt and unworthiness, and feelings like you're a fraud, and it stops you from moving forward. And it's usually based on unwarranted and baseless fears. And as a business owner, I feel this, and I think most of us in the real world feel this. Even at work, you think the person besides you is doing more or is better or whatever, and you internalize this, and causes you to feel like you're not enough. So
very true.
And yeah, and many I'll speak here as a woman, because many of our behavioral patterns as women suggest that we don't believe that we should receive. We're really good givers, or we don't deserve what is coming our way. And imposter syndrome makes us design our lives around these narratives of self-doubt and self-sabotage. And it's either caused consciously or unconsciously. And a lot of times it's because we believe there's just a fixed amount of happiness or success that we can actually achieve. So
I'm super curious about this, because like I'm really passionate about the root behind like the scientific term around different, whether it's psychological things that we as human beings deal with, mental, physical, things of that nature. Like I'm always, especially when it comes to psychological stuff, like I'm always super curious around like the root of that. So like behind the phrase imposter syndrome, what do you think lies behind that in the root of humanity?
I think it's just like, comparison is the thief of joy, like constantly looking to your neighbors and thinking that you're not enough and that you're not doing enough. And also that really takes away from celebrating your actual wins and your successes, because you're constantly feeling like you're not ahead and you're behind in the race, and your unique abilities and all the things that your contributions don't really matter, because there's somebody else who's doing it and who's doing it better than you. It's incredibly human of us to feel this, and and everyone feels it, and you're not alone. And it's people don't talk about it enough. I think like everybody's just super hush hush about what they're doing or what they're feeling. And yeah, I think that it's something that is everyone feels it, and we should discuss it more openly and know that like you're not alone in this, especially as a business owner.
Absolutely. Why do you think that as a default, it seems to be that us as human beings, by default, will compare ourselves to others. Why do you think that is?
That's such a good question, and I don't know if there's one answer to that. I think that is just the natural human tendency is just to focus on the negative. Like, we don't, if you have 99 things that are good and you have that one thing that goes bad, that's automatically by default you'll just obsess about that one thing that hasn't gone great, and that negative feedback. Also, that's another huge problem of imposter syndrome. Like, you have to be willing to also get the feedback. And if it's not great, that doesn't take away from who you are, your business, your cause, your root. Like, it doesn't, you have to just take it as that. Like, you have to be really confident in yourself and your abilities. I know it's easier said than done, to know that that feedback won't hurt you.
And listen, like, you're right. Like, and I love what you said about, like, it doesn't take away from who you are. Like, I truly, truly believe this, Shamsa. Like, I truly believe that the far majority of human beings find their identity in what they're up to and what they have versus who they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think
You're
that's a
absolutely right.
huge, I think that's a huge part of where imposter syndrome comes from for the far majority, because we don't look internally for our self-worth. We look externally.
Yeah. Especially today. Like, that's all we have to do is just, we don't like to take the mirror too close, and we just like to look outside and find our validation elsewhere. Um, and it really is as simple as doing the work. It just getting back, how do we manage this feeling, this overwhelming feeling of imposter syndrome, and, like, acknowledge it, know that it's here, it's real, and affirm to yourself that your anxiety is oftentimes present due to its irrational and baseless fears. And these fears of being hurt or rejected or disappointed can prevent you from taking risks and really going after the things that you really want and deserve.
100%. Like, literally, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they did something that I thought was incredible. When the pandemic first hit and everybody was pivoting and adapting and moving their businesses online and all the rest, this person actually just took time and really just did internal work. They had self-awareness enough to understand that they weren't ready to put, like, external action into place just yet. They had to do the internal work first to prepare themselves psychologically for the task at hand. And once they formed that foundation for the new world that we find ourselves in, then they were able to act. I thought that was super, super insightful and super, super incredible of this person. They judged themselves because they thought, well, all these people are doing something and I haven't done something yet. But what they didn't
They just,
realize at the time is that they were doing something, and they were actually doing the more important thing, was making sure that they had the foundation internally. So when they actually made action, they believed it.
wow, that's so powerful. And I think that, like, like, when I think about me and my business, the way it showed up for me, I mean, in many different circumstances, in different areas, but for me, it was like, I wanted to do more. I wanted to, like, get into all these different areas of my business. And I felt like I had to do all of these different things instead of focusing on the thing that I am really good at. And the one thing that I know is the cornerstone of my business. I built, like, I would do a whole different amount of things and hope that one of those things would yield and be successful. And that was my imposter syndrome talking. I felt like what I had wasn't enough. What I like, my unique attributions and gifts to the world, which is providing clean and efficient skincare, wasn't enough, that I had to do more. And I had to really sit with myself and examine why it is that I felt the need to do all these different things when in fact this was the one thing that I knew all along that I was meant to be doing.
I want to stay on this because I think this is super important. Now, do you want to do more or not?
I think going forward, I want to do more with clarity. I want to know that what I'm doing is serving my business and myself. Like, I want to know that it is on brand and that it is a natural extension of my business. It's not me going out and just looking for all this work that doesn't necessarily tie into my mission and my values.
Right. That, and I think that's the part that I love so much, which is like the root behind the decision. Are we doing more because everybody else is and I got to keep up and I got to keep up and I got to keep up? Or am I doing more because I'm comfortable in what I'm doing? I love what I'm doing. What I'm doing is working. I just want to build on top of it in a way that suits, you know, my values, my morals, what I want to accomplish, the legacy I want to leave. Like, that matters.
That matters a lot. That matters a lot. Building on that in a way that is, you know, um, me is really important, that I'm not overstretching and I'm not overdoing because I feel like I have to, and it's because like it forms close to my values.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. Like you know, contrary to popular belief, maybe just based on sheer execution, like I've had moments of like feeling like I have no business being a business owner, no business being an entrepreneur, whether it's for any reason under the sun, Shamsa. Like my grammar is not all that great. You know, I'm not the biggest math nerd in the world. Like, give me some addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and I'm good. But like, give me like a balance sheet and, you know, and I got to break everything down, explain everything. Like, I'm getting there, but I'm not, you know what I mean? So like, there's so many things that I could point to be like, there's no way I should be doing this. But I think that's the beautiful thing about life. And that's another thing that I think is really kind of helps dispel imposter syndrome in our lives, is that I think we put too much I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to control things. I think we win when we actually understand that we control only what we can, and what we can't, and let the chips fall where they may. I'm not going to sit here and dwell about what I can't control, because that doesn't serve me or what I'm trying to do. But let me focus on what I can control and what I can accomplish, and let me just do that well. And then everything will fall where it's supposed to. I think that's a big thing. I think we
110%.
spend a lot of time dwelling on things we actually have no say over how it's going to end up.
And it's crazy because it just like we fixate and it rules so much of our brain space for no reason. It makes no sense. For me, I call it when like that's my distraction noodle, right? Like that's when I'm not doing the things that I know that I actually should be when I fixate on something that is almost completely out of my control, i.e. the way somebody perceives me, or if somebody, may give me a bad review or doesn't like who I am, and whatever these external things are that I can't control. If you like me or if you don't, I can only control my actions. And then, I fixate and I dwell and I let that be like rule all my emotions for the rest of the day. I'm miserable because I felt that, whether it's true or not, that somebody did not react to me well, and I didn't get the accolades that I thought I was going to get. And it's really it's being in the id all the time is very, very toxic to yourself, and it doesn't serve you, right? You really kind of have to stop externalizing everything, or internalizing everything in this case, and really just focus on the things that you can control, which is what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. So when you have these like limiting beliefs that you just shared, so how do you, like, what are your steps to coping, and what do you do to like get yourself through
Honestly, for
that?
me, it's really, really basic, my thought process around this. I just internalize the very real truth that I'm not special, and that in the macro, I'm not a big deal. And therefore, I now give myself the freedom and the capacity to execute, knowing that not everything that I'm going to execute on is going to work out. And by the way, nobody cares anyway. So let me just keep trying. Let me just keep doing. Something works out great. Something doesn't work out great. Like 99% of the things that we dwell over don't matter. And once
Yeah.
we realize that we're actually not that special, we can do exceptional things, but we are actually not that special. That gives you freedom. That gives you freedom to go and do extraordinary things without fear of judgment from others, without fear of failure, without fear of I'm gonna let everybody down. You're not that special. That's what I tell myself. That's what I tell myself. I'm not that special, and that I can go out and do the things that I wouldn't do if I was too busy judging myself and internalizing the potential of failure.
And it's incredibly humbling, right? Like, it's like being in the presence of like a large body of water or a massive mountain, and you're just standing there and you're like, wow, I'm so tiny, I'm so unspecial right now. And that's the best feeling, because you're special to you, and that's all that matters, really. And
It takes the pressure off.
takes the pressure off.
It takes the burden. Like it's funny, like I want to go back to what you said before, and like talking about like how we internalize things. And like I'm going to take it a step further. Like I think behind imposter syndrome, which is like how we actually feel about ourselves and how we take that into what we do, I would actually say that the far majority of people that are in over their heads financially is because of that. Like people
Mm-hmm.
that wanted to have, like the status, like I have 50 rental properties, or I have this car, or I have this thing, or like I really think imposter syndrome has a lot to do with that. Let me just buy this car and then I'll feel like this, or I'll look like that person, or I'll feel like I accomplished something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
None of that stuff's
100%.
going with you when you go.
No. Yeah. I think that, just staying rooted in your purpose and, you know, just your unique contributions that only you can make in this world is just the most humbling way to overcome and just to sit with yourself and
and
special,
yeah.
but I have stuff to offer, and that's good enough.
Yeah, and I want to be like practical too, because I want to give value in a way where it's like people can understand some things that they can actually do to break through this stuff, because it really is a daily struggle. So like I like to think like really like micro practical, like what's gonna bring value. And like honestly, like I'll give my own personal life example is I'm really, really selfish around who I spend time with. Um, like I intentionally am only around people in my circle of family, friends that are of like-mindedness. They don't take themselves too seriously. And we're humble enough to keep each other accountable for what we say and do. That's what real friendships are. That's what real relationships are. So when you spend, like my father always said to me, he's like, you know, show me who you keep company with and I'll tell you who you are. And he told me that since like yay high. And I've taken that with me into life, and it's been so fruitful. Um, you know, you just meet people and they're just in such a down and dark place. And a lot of it actually just comes from who they've chosen to be around, whether it's just they're a product of their environment or whatever the case may be. But it's incredible how one can change when you put them around somebody or a group of people that is a community of support and building people up. And it's beautiful, and I've experienced it firsthand, and I'm super grateful for that.
So then I guess the question is, for somebody who doesn't have a great support system and a great network of people to surround themselves with, A, how do they do that for themselves? And B, where do they find these people that that can be inspirational and help them view themselves and the world in a different lens that's a little bit more positive?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of places that you can look to start. I think one thing that people can really glean in the action of doing that is observe first before sharing. So what I mean by that, it's like dating, right? Like, you know, when you're dating, probably the best thing to do is observe the person for a good minute, ask questions, and you know, get a sense of who they are and you know what they're about before you start kind of just sharing your deepest, darkest secrets. Like I think there's a appropriate way to go about finding people that are going to be a positive support in your life. But the reality is like I think some people just aren't necessarily in the right mindset to do that. So for those people, they might not even know where to look. So I'm almost thinking of the people that I'm catering this answer to, the people that just they might know, like, okay, like I could go to this community center, or I could go to this church, or I could go to whatever. Like you can do all those things, but my answer is actually going to cater to the person that doesn't love themselves yet. And what you do when you don't love yourself and you're vulnerable, and or you're, you know, whatever, like you probably share too much, or you ever meet somebody and it's like verbal diarrhea, like you meet them and within an hour you know their whole life story. That's actually an example of like not having good boundaries. It means you
Yeah.
don't have good boundaries. So I would actually encourage somebody, like, whatever avenue you go, always take the same approach. Observe, ask questions. Observe, ask questions. Observe, ask questions, and really be selfish about how much time it takes for you to let that person in, or that support group in, or that community in, because it can bite you if you're not in the right mindset, which a lot of people that don't have that support system to begin with, a lot of them aren't in the right mindset. So that's what I would suggest for anybody that's kind of going down that path to make changes. And then on the practical side about who you're currently hanging with, don't be afraid to, like, cut them off respectfully and say, listen, like, I need to be whole for me. And people are going to get offended. People are probably going to disown you. We live in cancel culture, a lot of us, and we deal with that. But you got a long life to live, and wouldn't you rather live it not being a slave to somebody else's opinion of you?
Amen to that. And it's just an opinion, and like being on the receiving side, just people have opinions, and you cannot control other people's opinions about you.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
It's a lot of internal work.
It is. And that's what really excited me about the call that I had yesterday, where the lady, she's like, yeah, I actually just took a step back and worked on me, because I knew I needed to do some work on me first. And I think, like, and you see it, like, right? Like, you can tell, like, those kids that came from, like, families where, like, confidence and just self-worth was really instilled in them. Like, it almost seems like they have the advantage because they were ingrained with that idea of self-worth, and this is what I'm worth, and there's no budging because the foundation is there. I think everybody's got to build that foundation, and I think that's seasonal. Like, I think different traumatic things come up in people's lives, and you kind of have to build that foundation over time. It's not going to be overnight. But I definitely think you got to get in a pattern where you have self-awareness enough to understand where you lack in that area, because imposter syndrome can actually quench your growth in business, and it can actually lead you to not do some of the things that would have really taken you over the hill to the next chapter.
Yes. No, yeah, and like that is particularly important as a woman in business, to not allow these feelings to overshadow my success and the success of my business, and constantly move forward and move through these uncomfortable feelings, and know that I'm worthy and I do deserve a seat at the table, and my success is because I have worked hard to get it, and I deserve to be there.
I love it. I love it. And here's the other thing, Shamsa. You just made me think of this. How are we defining success? Let's check ourselves on that. Are we defining it based on what we see other people do? Are we defining it based on what our core values and morals are, and where we're at, and what makes us tick, and what makes us happy?
Yes. For a long time, yeah, I equated, for me, my success in my formulations was huge, because in my community of natural skincare, you would just see these like amazing, just like earth-shattering, awesome, like take you back 10 years of formulations, and you would think like, wow, like I wish, like they're so great, they're so talented. Instead of me focusing on my little circle and what I can do and what my skincare philosophy is, and what I will never promise you that you will, age backwards and you'll be 20 years younger. And what I can say is like, you wear this and it'll protect your skin and it'll cleanse your skin better than some of the other things. Instead of knowing that that's my main market and my main message, I would constantly look into my world. And by the way, that's not the world that everybody else, it's just my world, because I'm in that world where I would compare myself to, and then I'd come back into my other world and think that I was never good enough. And I was like, who would buy this from me? Why do people even like the stuff that I make? And it's, there's so much better out there. It's such a saturated market. I'm not good enough. My stuff isn't good enough. And constantly fighting through these feelings and being like, no, my stuff is awesome. These people bought mass reviews all the time. They keep buying from me. They bought from me for 2 years in a row now. They recommend their family and friends. Like, there's value. I have intrinsic value. I am enough. I know what I'm doing. My formulations are wonderful. They work. And they provide relief to all these people who have given me nothing but, amazing feedback. And you would think that that would have been enough. But it was back again, doing the internal work and getting back to a place where I had to believe that I was actually good enough and that I was enough, period.
100%. I think the worst thing that people can do is put a timeline on success.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think that's the worst thing that people can do. Like, oh man, I see it all the time. People come to us and they need something to happen in their business now, yesterday, a month ago. And I had to go through a phase of better understanding the consumer and the psychology behind that reaction or that response or that initial phone call or email. And the root really behind it, Shamsa, was insecurity. It really just came down to people are really insecure about their business. They're insecure about what they got going on, what they don't got going on yet. Keeping up with the Joneses. So and so over here, competition is doing this. I need marketing like yesterday. Do you? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Maybe there's a conversation that needs to be had about your business first. Well, why are you spending all of your profits on this nice fancy car? You think that maybe some of the anxiety you're feeling is that you didn't invest that back into the business instead? Those are the type of conversations that I'm understanding and going through now, because I understand more about how humans at their core function. And it is incredible how simple the actual challenge is when you strip away the top layers and really get down to the root. And it really just comes down to self-worth and how we feel or don't feel about ourselves.
Yeah, that's powerful. And 110%, you hit the nail. It's just, that's exactly what it is. It's your self-worth. And you carry that in every aspect of your life. Why wouldn't it creep up in your business? So these are like very sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think businesses are the mirror of the people that run them. I think they're the mirror of the people that run them. And once I internalized that, it actually became easier for me to fire clients. It became easier for me to really have a healthy and constructive conversation around expectations. What is and isn't our expectation versus theirs. Um, it gave me no fear as far as relating the loss of a client to revenue or things of that nature. Like it really changed my entire uh, outlook on business versus the human being and how they're actually one and the same.
Yeah. And that's brilliant because, going back to like being the jack of all trades and doing all these different things, um, it was foolish because everything that I wanted to get into required more of my time, more of my labor that cost products and or wherever else that I needed to fulfill these orders or whatever section that I was getting into. It took more out of me. And like the one thing as an entrepreneur that you cannot like sacrifice is time, because time is money. Time is how I like can continue to function as a business owner and also as a mom and as a wife. Like I need to be very conscious of how my time is spent. And if I'm constantly all over the place and doing everything and everything to everyone, then I am nothing, and it takes so much out of me that it is just it's a silly business model. It doesn't work. It's not sustainable at all. And in the end, I am left with nothing in the pursuit of what? Growth? And it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And really it's just getting down to, your self-worth and like doing that. Like, what is it that I am actually after? Why do I feel like I have to do all these things when in fact I do not have to do any of these things? So
That's it.
yeah, you're right.
That's it. Yeah. Like, by the way, I think I really do believe that this conversation is super, super valuable to the people that are going to be listening to this. Like I've got serious value out of this conversation today. I think that,
Me too.
and by the way, like I think that these conversations are an actual practical example of how you work through those limiting beliefs. And that can look like therapy to some people. That can look like doing podcast episodes with like-minded individuals. That can look like group sessions. That can, you know what I mean? There's find out what works for you and lean in hard. But a lot of it you're going to find will have to do with some sort of human synergy and connection. You're going to find a lot of that. The answer is in a lot of that and who you're spending your time with.
Yeah. And when you move through these cycles and you're at a place in your life and in your business where good things are coming to you, just know that you are deserving, and like that is the result of your hard work. Like you are meant to be there. You are there for a reason, So I think that that's also on the other side. Once you do the work, the other side of imposter syndrome is also receiving and accepting and being staying in gratitude for all the abundance that life has thrown your way, and that the steps that you needed to do to get there is what you've done, and now you can reap the benefits. And don't hide, don't there's like I was reading like Albert Einstein, Maya Angelou, Beyonce, all these like amazing people have all gone through these steps, have all felt the same way because they're human, and they have felt unworthy and felt like had to do the inner work to say, no, I deserve this. I worked hard for this. I'm here to claim my crown, and I'm here to, take up space and do my life work and in a meaningful and positive and purposeful way. So yeah.
100%. 100%. Here's something I want people to stop doing. And then Shams, I'm gonna get you to tell people where they can find you and get to know more about what you're up to. I want people to stop when somebody gives you a compliment, when somebody is a fan of your work, a fan of what you're doing, a fan of what you accomplish. Don't respond and say, yeah, but, or, well, we're trying. Well, just say thank you. Own it. Receive it. It's yours.
Mm-hmm.
Shams, let people know where they can find you.
Yeah. You can find me at Afia Beauty on Instagram. You can check out our site at afiabeauty.com and email us at info@afiabeauty. And yeah, so those are all the different places you can find us. And it's just been really, really awesome, incredibly relatable, incredibly human conversation that we are having. And we all have work to do in this world, and we all have things to offer, and let's just know that we are all worthy, and let's do the work so that we can show up as our best self.
I'm going to echo your words, and I'm going to say amen to that.
Yeah.